Okay, here we go. We are live right now. Okay. Okay. Hi Tyler, thank you for sponsoring my channel, man. Okay. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone's having a good day. I'm sorry I started kind of late today, guys. Was doing a few things and had that copyright claim released earlier today, which is definitely a good thing. Hey everyone. Oh, you're in the United States, Isaiah? Well, hope the storm where you're at gets better. That goes away. Hey, Suspect 13. Hey, Nicholas. Okay. Did you see the French president blame video games for the ongoing riots in France? Yes. And the French president is an idiot. That's what I'll say about him. I don't normally get involved in politics. You know, I try to stay away from that. But you know, he's an idiot. That's just it. You know what does that have to do with video games at all? It's okay. Here. Do a bootlegger mission here.
You know, there was a time
Oh, hey, Blind Eagle.
I started feeling very sorry for myself. But I got what I got. We ain't making toys for orphans here. This is a risky business.
Isn't it wild how Yuri Lowenthal, 51, and he plays Spider-Man so well? If you play the games and watch the Spider-Man 2 gameplay, you'll understand he sounds wild with the symbiote suit. He even played Mark Miller, apparently, in Spider-Man, in Saints Row 3 and, Matt Miller, you mean, in Saints Row 3 and 4. Thank you, Blinded Eagle, and thank you for the super chat, man. I do appreciate it. Largest super chat on the stream today. Thanks, man. I didn't know that the guy who plays as Matt Miller plays in Spider-Man. Oh, hey Steve, how are you, man? And hey Aussie guy. Let's get over the location. And my stable, my other horse in. I've been using this horse too much. Oh. I can invite you to the posse right after this, Justin. My favorite Red Dead Redemption 2 mission? In the single player, my favorite single player mission in Red Dead Redemption 2 would probably have to be when you were fighting Fusar soldiers on that fort and then you blew up the battleship. That's probably my favorite mission in the single player. In the online, my favorite mission in the online, I think, would probably have to be the Moonshine story mission when you're on the train appears with all the revenue agents and then you get on the boat and then they're like all on the shore. I think that's my favorite online story mission. Hey Locke, thank you for sponsoring my channel. Thanks, man. Your recent GTA lore video was good. Thank you, man. And hopefully the algorithm helps it as well, because when videos are monetized, they're more likely recommended by the algorithm. He also got nominated in 2018 for Best Performance as Peter, which is just insane. Obviously, we know Roger Clark won that. Also finishing Driver's Ed. Thank you, Blinded Eagle. I wish you luck in Driver's Ed. I hope you get your license. here we go. Okay. Well, the permit is 10 questions at the DMV. You can study for it, and I think there's like practice tests that you can take online to get ready for it. Thank you, Dylan. Have I tried the Grimace milkshake? No, what is that? Grimace milkshake. Thank you, Luigi fan. Okay, almost here. Let me put on frame because I want to use frame. Is it McDonald's milkshake? No, I haven't. I haven't heard of it. And what, people are getting sick from it? Okay, controls, here we go. Free aim. I still have a cigar. I should have some cigars here. It's a meme trend? Oh. Wait, this is like a real milkshake that's in McDonald's and people are getting sick from it. Favorite World at War mission? Probably the Stalingrad mission. Yeah, probably the Stalingrad Vendetta. That's my favorite Soviet mission is Vendetta in World at War. My favorite American mission is Black Cats. That would be the plain one. Oh, it's a joke? Oh, okay, wait, what? I'm confused. Hey, James. How are you, man? Okay. Guys, the posse is open, so you guys can just join it. It's just open. You can just join the posse. Play Dead Rising. I will revisit Dead Rising in the future. Yes.
Let's get the devil do.
Oh. Been getting much better at first person with these. Getting much better with the first person on these dual cattlemans. Yeah, I don't think you'd be able to reload that quickly. Your Medal of Honor series was amazing, especially with the Singapore one. Thank you, and the next part will be up tomorrow. I'm sorry it's been a bit busy with a lot of different stuff, but the next part will be up tomorrow. Okay, let's see here. GTA 3 mod Forelli Redemption. It takes place in 2000. 1 with a GTA 3 story. I heard there's like a mod, the Sindako Chronicles now too, or something like that. I would actually be willing to play those story mods. I mean, they're not canon, but I would be willing to play them. Like, people make own story missions. I think that'd be kind of cool. Fallout or Skyrim on stream? Yeah, I could possibly do that maybe one day. Okay. What's inaccurate? That the revolvers can reload 6 rounds, but they can only reload 5? Well, what I will tell you is, what's very unrealistic is that a lot of these guns, how quickly they fire and how quickly they reload. A lot of these guns do not fire in real life like this. Like, okay, yeah, I've fired a Carcano in real life a few times. This rifle here specifically, the bolt does not move that fast. It is not that fast. So I can say for certainty the Carcano does not fire like that. But the only gun that actually has somewhat realistic reload times on this is the bolt action rifle. This is the only one that I would say is kind of realistic with the bolt like that. The bolt on this is called the Springfield Krag in real life. This is actually the bolt is actually very fast and very smooth. And yes, if an experienced rifleman can move the bolt this fast in real life. So yes, it's definitely possible with this. But the Carcano, no, hell no. What the Carcano does, it's not gonna go that fast. I know it's a video game, but it's one person asked me about it earlier. But I like something. I really wish they never added these really quick like reload timers like in the online, because the single player these guns fire a lot slower. I wish they would have kept it like single player, honestly. I don't mind that they made the looting animation faster. That I don't have a problem with. But making like the guns fire so fast, like this is the Springfield rifle. This is a single shot rifle. Literally, you're loading a single-shot rifle as fast as you're firing a bolt-action rifle. So that's, yeah, no. Did the Krag ever see action? Oh, yes, it did, definitely. The Krag saw action for over 50 years. The Krag saw a lot of action with the U.S. military. The U.S. military adopted it for like, I think it was only like a decade. It wasn't very long. But the Krag saw a lot of action in the Spanish-American War. In the Spanish-American War, the Krag was the standard issue rifle for the U.S. The Krag also saw use in Norway. The Norwegian military actually used the Krag against Germany in World War II. So that was so the Krag actually did see combat in that too. Oh, hello, is that you, Phoenix, there? Thank you for sponsoring my channel. I can't read your name. That's Phoenix, right? Rockstar updated GTA San Andreas Mobile for the first time in 4 years. Why now so late? Also, I wish GTA 4 got a remaster instead of Red Dead. What did they update it with, Feline King? Oh, and thank you, Sieves1. Thanks for your content. Always watch your videos when I play GTA Online, Red Dead Online back in the day. Glad to see you're still playing it. Much love. Thank you, Sieves. Thanks, man. And that means a lot to me that you do watch my Red Dead content. Also, invite me to your posse. The posse's open, James. Who's... Oh, did somebody leave? Oh, if somebody left, we could probably make a spot for somebody else if they appear online. Was it General who was asking earlier if they wanted to, see here, what happened to Jim from the Lost and Damned? He got killed by Nico in that train mission. You know, the mission where Nico chases the bikers in the subway? Jim died in that. Jim was that guy that Nico killed at the end, even though his character model looks nothing like that. In Spider-Man 1, spoiler alert, the screwball missions are the worst. Seriously, if anyone here has played through, you understand what I'm saying. Well, one day I will play those games one day. One day I'll get around to playing Spider-Man. I did play the old Spider-Man games when I was a kid, like Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. Though Spider-Man 3 kind of sucked, but Spider-Man 1 and 2 were good games. The old ones, the PS2 ones. Okay.
You did good with that last thing, eh? So, what's it to be?
Uh,
But don't look at me like that. I haven't got any bloody capitali.
I hate when they say that word.
Now,
Oh, thank you,
right off
Sieves,
when
for
I sit before
sponsoring my
you,
channel.
As excited as I am, truthfully, I'm a
You ever
little
think
giddy,
about doing a
and I'll
bully
tell you
a
what,
playthrough? Yes,
this
I
central
have British
union fat
Ronin.
cat bastard has dipped his balls in the cream for the last time. That's right. Word came down the line from Martelli himself. He wants this robber baron brought to him alive. Naturally, I gave him your word it was as good as done. That's the what. Now for the how. There's a railroad bridge under construction down near McFarlane's ranch. Find the foreman there. Pop his lad under the hammer until he tells you where his boss is holed up. The rest I leave to your natural creativity. And if this bastard don't have a stack of capital in his top pocket,
Oh, I hate
I'll
when they
kiss the
just
next
say.
Englishman I see.
I hate when they just say capitale in the game. I just find it cringe. But what I will tell you guys is there's a. Oh, I'll feed my horse. I'm sorry I wasn't paying attention. Yet another guide of yours has maybe some millions. Thanks, Pro. No problem, Anton. Glad I can help. And you know something? That guide has done really well, that guide that I put out. Even though it's only good for a week, it's actually done really well. And I'm considering making a series out of this. Like every Thursday, I'm considering making a GT Online video every Thursday. And every Thursday in that GT Online video, I'll probably talk about the best ways to make money. Like, so I'll make a money guide every week. I think people would really like that. I used to do that back in the day, but I did take a break from GT Online, so I'm open to doing that again. People like my money guides, and so I'm open to doing that again. But I'll tell you guys something. There's a really cringe line in Red Dead Online, and this is the worst line that I've ever seen in Red Dead Redemption 2. It's the cringiest line of dialogue I've ever seen in the entire game. It's actually in my video. I made a video on the Blood Money review, and that one I actually showed that line in it. But Sean is the one who says it. It's a Blood Money line. But basically, and I'm not joking when I say this. My game might have crashed. We're gonna have to wait a minute or two here. But there's a piece of dialogue in which Sean actually says that he slept with a prostitute and he paid her in capitale. That's what he actually says. He actually says that in Red Dead Online, and that's the cringiest line that I've ever heard. That's like the worst line I've ever heard. I don't know, Rockstar's trying to be funny or what, but that was literally the worst line I ever heard. It's an actual line. I'm not joking. You can see it on my Blood Money review video. I show that line. But that's Why are you playing this garbage? It's not garbage. Red Dead Online is a fun game. It's just sometimes the Rockstar did screw the game over, but it's Pro, what was the best part about retail? The best part about retail was the friends that I made. That was the best part about it. Actman made a video addressing the problem of hackers in Call of Duty. Okay, let me see here. I'm gonna restart my game here. I'm restarting my game. What's it called? Pierston, are you still in that session? Pierston, are you still in that session? Oh. Okay. Who else is in that session right now?
I'm still in it, bro.
Can you invite me to that session, please, James?
Yeah, I will.
Thank you. Let me go into game chat here too. I think it's because in private sessions I don't think you can do the blood money missions. I think that's why that was like that. Oh, thank you, Anton, for sponsoring my channel. Thanks, man. Okay. Let me join here back. Why you still don't do a GTA 3 lore video? You did a lore video for every GTA game, but that actually I did do a GTA 3 lore video. It's it's only one, but I did one. It's called Why Does Salvatore Betray Claude? The real reason I did that. But I still have a GTA 3 lore video to make on who is Claude, where is he from? That's my lore video explaining Claude's backstory and his personality. And Claude does have a personality, despite what people think. He does have a personality. Just because he doesn't speak doesn't mean he doesn't have a personality. But he does have very much of a personality. And I will tell you something. Claude, in my opinion, is the most dangerous GTA character of all time. I really think he's the most dangerous one. I don't think, not just the most dangerous one, but I think he's the most ruthless and the most evil GTA protagonist of all time. Honestly, I'd rather take my chances with Trevor than I would with Claude. Honestly, saying that. So that's like what the type of person that Claude is. Like I would be terrified of Claude, honestly. I would be less scared of Trevor. Not that I wouldn't be scared of Trevor, but I'd honestly be less scared of Trevor than I would of Claude. Claude I'd be way more scared of. Yeah, oh yeah, you pretty much summed it up, Brandon. He's a stone cold killer. You know, Claude is Claude has no conscience. None. Most brutal injury you're comfortable talking about? I can't really think of one. I mean, there was that time Blinded Eagle. I mean, I told this story a few times, but I was working on a night shift, and you know, my coworker dropped like this 50-pound bar on my foot, like this kind of steel bar. He dropped that on my foot, and it was just yeah, that was horrible. My foot was, you know, when I went home that night, I took my sock off, and my sock was all red, and then I saw my foot was all bloody, and then the next few days afterwards, when I tried to walk, what happened is I didn't feel like my whole leg, even though it hit my foot, like my whole leg, I didn't feel it, like it's like wasn't there, like I would hit my leg against the wall and I wouldn't feel anything. After a few days, eventually, you know, I was able to feel my leg and feel everything again, but that was just, yeah. That was one of the worst injuries I've ever gotten. Hey, Rushno, glad that claim was lifted. Quick GTA 4 lore question. Would it be possible Bulgarin approached Pegorino to call for Ray's death? Thank you, Burgundy. You mean because Ray was involved with the diamonds? Is that why? I highly doubt that Bulgarin even knew that Ray was involved with the diamonds. Like, Bulgarin, all he cared about was that Luis was involved with that, and then he tried to kill Luis and Nico. That's it pretty much there. When did that happen? It happened a few years ago. I'm sure it was an accident. It was an accident, but my coworker was being very, what's the word? Negligent. No, I never seen that movie, Reservoir Dogs, though I heard it has a game. Why didn't you play the new Star Wars Survivor? I just didn't have time. I was busy with so many projects. The Raccoon City incident in Resident Evil happened in 1998. Yep. It was in the 90s. And when they made the Resident Evil 2 remake, they still made everything very much 90s, which I appreciated about that. Do I pay taxes, or do I get, or do you have to pay taxes, or you get paid by YouTube? Well, I get paid by YouTube, but I have to do my taxes. It's not automatically taken out. I have to do it. Thank you, Z. I'm glad that you enjoyed my hangar guide. When will we get the GTA DLC review? We'll probably get the GTA DLC review probably on once everything is released. So I'm gonna wait for the helicopter to Kanata, the weaponized Kanata, to be released. Once that's done, I'll probably review this DLC. I haven't reviewed a DLC in some time, but this DLC I think I'll review. But honestly speaking, I'm gonna give the DLC negative reviews because this is the first DLC that I've seen that's actually taken out more content and added it. So that's, yeah. I have done a walk for Red Dead Redemption 2 story. Pro, would you like or dislike to see your decisions have very bad or good consequences? Well, I would like to see consequences, but I'm gonna tell you something right now. Do you know what my worst fear about Star Wars Outlaws is? Do you know what my worst fear about that game is? What I'm really scared of going wrong with that game? It's and the thing about this is I actually predicted this would happen in Battlefront 2, and it did. I called it. But basically, my biggest fear with Star Wars Outlaws is that like halfway through the story, she's gonna be all like, oh, I don't want to be an outlaw anymore. I don't want to be a criminal. I want to join the rebellion and help save the galaxy. Like, I really hope they don't do that. Like, that all of a sudden she stops becoming a criminal and just decides to join the rebellion and try to fight the Empire. I really hope they don't pull that. Because if they do, I'm going to be very, very disappointed. Because this is a game where they're advertising it as you playing as a criminal. So that's the thing about this. When you really think about it, this is kind of like the first Star Wars game where you play as a criminal, really. There are some other games where you played as a criminal. In Star Wars Bounty Hunter, you played as a criminal. I mean, Jango Fett was a criminal. So you played as him, but it wasn't open world, and it was, you know, a long time ago, PS2 game. The only other game where you play as a criminal that I know of in the Star Wars games is Star Wars The Old Republic. You can play as a smuggler and a bounty hunter, which are both criminals. So that, but this one, you're playing as strictly a criminal. It's an open world game. And, you know, there's gonna be gangsters, you know, there's gonna be cartels. Yes, there are drug cartels in the Star Wars world. They, you know, they don't have coke and that stuff, but they have spice. They deal in spice. That's the drug the cartels deal in Star Wars. The enemies that she was actually fighting in the demo, that was the Pike Syndicate. The Pike Syndicate are actually a drug cartel. So that's they're a very familiar gang in the Star Wars universe. So you're gonna have a lot of different gangs, mafias. You have the Hutts, bounty hunters, mercenaries, and I hope to see like all these different criminal gangs in like Star Wars Outlaws. Since it's Star Wars Outlaws, I want to see it focus on the crime element of Star Wars. I really want that, because the thing about it is the crime element of Star Wars is so good that you could have like entire movies just along on the crime element of Star Wars, because the criminal underworld in Star Wars is so detailed. And especially like with the you have like the underground portion of Coruscant. You never see it in the movies, but in the Star Wars lore, like the lower levels of Coruscant are like slums and have like the worst gangs and the most dangerous criminals in them. And so I would like to see, you know, something like that hopefully make an appearance in Star Wars Outlaws. It was actually going to be in Star Wars 1313. You were going to see like the slums of Coruscant, but it never made an appearance. So I really hope that the game stays true to its criminal theme. And I really hope they don't do any, you know, let's join the rebellion crap. I hope they don't do that. Because that's what Star Wars Battlefront 2 did. Because, honestly, when I purchased Star Wars Battlefront 2 and I beat Star Wars Battlefront 2, I felt cheated. Like, that's what I honestly did. I felt like I was ripped off. Because, sure, the multiplayer was fun, but I bought Star Wars Battlefront 2 a huge reason for the single player. Because I wanted a good Star Wars single player campaign. And, like, the single player campaign, it was like 2 or 3 missions in. It's like literally the front cover of it shows Iden's Imperial Special Forces helmet, and so they're told this is an Imperial storyline. You get to play as Imperial Special Forces, and then all of a sudden, like 2 or 3 missions in, she's all like, "Oh, we're the bad guys. Let's just join the rebellion." It's like the whole thing just made no sense. It was just stupid. And the thing about that is, it was if she was like the commander of like a stormtrooper squad, it would have been one thing if they joined the rebellion. But she was the commander of an Imperial Special Forces. The Special Forces in any kind of military are always going to be the most loyal to the country. So whatever the government is, whether it's a democracy, a dictatorship, whatever the government is, Special Forces for any country are always going to have the most loyal people. They're always going to be the most loyal, obedient people to the government, to the regime, whatever it is. So Special Forces, you're going to have always the most patriotic people and the most loyal people ever. It's just pretty much like that all around the world. And so the point that I'm making is that with Imperial Special Forces, you would have the most loyal Imperials that would be on like a team like that. And the fact that all of a sudden she just decides to just join the rebellion when she's like Imperial Special Forces and her father is like an Imperial Admiral and she like went to the Imperial Academy, like the whole thing just made no sense. Like it was just I don't know who wrote that story for Star Wars Battlefront 2, but that story was terrible. Like that story was terribly written. Like it was really, really bad. And honestly, the only character that I actually liked in Star Wars Battlefront 2 was, what was his name? Husk? I forget the guy's name. Is the guy you kill at the end of the game in the DLC. He was like the only guy who actually didn't betray the Empire. He was like the only character I actually liked in that game. Like everyone else I didn't like. Like it was just, I just thought they were poorly written. See here, I remember that playthrough. You were pissed off. Oh, you watched my playthrough from 6 years ago. Yeah, so, yeah, that I was pissed when I did that playthrough. What's your Clone Wars arc? Well, the Clone Wars TV show is perfect. I really have no complaints about the Clone Wars TV show. I thought that was a good show. And some of the episodes of the Clone Wars you saw from the perspective of the villains, which I thought that was very interesting. Because typically in Star Wars, you always see from the perspective of the good guys, you know. But in that one, you saw perspective of the villains in a lot of the episodes of the Clone Wars, which some of the episodes were just with the villains. And so that, I thought that was they wrote the script for the Clone Wars perfect. Yeah, so I would say that. If you quit your retail job, would you be able to live off YouTube? Yes, but I quit my retail job 4 years ago. So also, Pro, you really have fun with the Spider-Man DLC as well. I actually enjoyed it, and the Platinum Trophy is one of the easiest trophies you get. Also, why don't you ever stream playthroughs? I'd want that. I usually stream playthroughs when they're very, very long games. So if it's like a very, very long game, I'll stream a playthrough of it. If it's like a very, very long game. But it's usually like most games I'll do walkthroughs of. Let me feed my horse here. Oh, next Medal of Honor part is me tomorrow, or I should say in like probably like 12 hours. I'm sorry that I didn't upload it for like 5 days. I've just been so busy with like a lot of stuff, but it's resuming Medal of Honor. No, let's wait until 4 minutes. We'll wait until 4 minutes, get a little bit more money. How does the online compare to GTA? Oh, this game, you mean? I don't know if you could really compare it. GTA Online, I would say, has way more content than Red Dead Online. But about Red Dead Online it's still a very fun game, but Red Dead Online is only a game you want to play with friends, because if you play this game solo, you're going to be bored out of your mind. So GTA is a game you can even play solo. You can do stuff solo. But like in this game, you can still do stuff solo, but you're gonna get really bored if you do stuff solo. But but if you play with friends, yeah, it's kind of fun. If you play with friends, I would say. Oh, what about that, D Rose? You remember my old name from years ago?
You no good bastard.
Medal of Honor Airborne? Yeah, I'll play that one day. Yeah, but where did you see that, D Rose? Yeah. No, Gaming Emperor is what my YouTube name used to be in 2015. So if anybody's watched my channel for 8 years, they remember what my name was like the first few months. But yeah, my name used to be like massive cringe. Like Gaming Emperor, yeah, that's very cringe. So I changed it. Yeah, I would consider playing the Old Republic, but I wish they would bring the Old Republic to consoles. I really wish they would, because PS5 could definitely handle the Old Republic. It definitely could. So I would like that.
Well, you'll get the going rate as soon as they're in a cell. Take them down there. And this is yours.
Wait, what, Dragon? What's the worst game that you have played in the last 3 years? That's an easy one. Saints Row. The reboot. No, I didn't play the older Republic, but I played I'm getting confused. I didn't play Knights of the Old Republic, but I did play Star Wars The Old Republic. That one I did play. And I got really far in Star Wars The Old Republic. I never played as the Republic characters. I played as the Imperial characters. But my favorite character in that game was the Bounty Hunter. The Bounty Hunter is the character that I associated the most with and I liked. Like, you know, mercenary, you know, just a guy that works for money. You know, that was the character, like, model that I liked the most in that one. So I didn't really care much for the Sith or the Jedi. I liked the Bounty Hunter the most. That was the one I liked. I did try playing as, like, a Sith warrior, I think it was. I did, like, I got a little bit through the story, but I didn't get that far into it. But the Bounty Hunter one in the old Star Wars The Old Republic, I actually did beat that. I went all the way in. I remember that when there was, like, the Great Hunt, and then, like, you got congratulated by Mandalore and all that stuff. I do remember that. So I did beat that, but that was many years ago. Yeah, they should they should really add Star Wars: The Old Republic to console, like PS5. I would definitely play it if it was on PS5 again. So I mean, if it should be on PS5. I think that would be cool if they did that one day. Well, the thing about it is that in Star Wars Outlaws, I could see the character dealing with the Rebellion and the Empire. I don't really have a problem with that, but I hope that they just don't all of a sudden decide to join the Rebellion. I hope they don't do that. Because I'll tell you something. If you were a criminal in that time, let's just say that you're a notorious outlaw, in the Star Wars world, right? What faction would you most likely want to win the Galactic Civil War? Would you want the Rebellion to win, or would you want the Empire to win? Which one do you think would a criminal in the Star Wars world support? SOCOM 2 is next week. Thank you, Glover. Hey, Pro, do you think there will be a Red Dead 3? If so, what would you like to be in it? Thank you, Hamburglar. Thank you, man. I sent you a message, I think, on Skype also, the other day, but, oh, well, I would, about Red Dead Redemption 3, I would like it to be Jack, and I would like it to be set in the 1920s, and you have a little bit of things more advanced, like cars, maybe like Chicago or something like that you would see in the 1920s during Prohibition. I think that would be kind of cool, playing as Jack during that. Okay, so, a few people got my question right. I asked earlier, what faction would a criminal in the Star Wars world support, the Empire or the Rebellion? It was a trick question. That's the thing. A criminal wouldn't support either of the factions. If I was a notorious criminal in the Star Wars world, let's just say that I was a notorious smuggler, right? I smuggled stuff in the Star Wars world. I would want the Galactic Civil War to go on as long as possible. I don't want either side to win. Because the longer that there's chaos and the more fighting that there is, the easier it is to smuggle stuff, the easier it is to get around stuff. If these two factions are constantly fighting and killing each other, it makes it easier for criminals. Criminals love that. They love that anarchy. They love that chaos. So if there's a war zone going on, they're going to take advantage of that because there's no one to really enforce the laws because both sides are fighting each other. So that's what it was. A true, like, you know, outlaw in the Star Wars world would support both sides fighting for as long as possible, and they wouldn't want the Galactic Civil War to end anytime soon. It's more profitable if they keep fighting each other. Let me see here. Let's say Red Dead Redemption 3 was Red Dead Redemption 2 prequel. How would you write it? Maybe you would play as Dutch when he's forming the gang early on. How he meets Hosea and Arthur and all those people. The classic Star Wars Battlefront games were awesome. Yes, I still have to stream San Andreas 100%. Let me start up another bounty, because I know people are probably waiting for that. Yes, Spec Ops: The Line is on my list to do. Okay. It's this guy here. Saints Row 3 DLCs, maybe I'll do that sometime in July. And I'll play the modern Medal of Honor games one day too. Oh, let me get on my horse here. Well, those flak towers were really scary. Those were really big things. And the thing is, the flak towers actually were very effective. Because usually when a military builds up something massive, usually it's not really that effective. It's really a lot of, if they build like one giant project, it's usually some waste. But the flak towers, on the other hand, those were terrifying, and those were actually very effective. Those actually shot down a lot of planes, and the buildings were built very strong, very, very strong concrete. It was very hard to bring those buildings down. The building was basically a giant bunker when you really think about it, with tons of AAs on the roof. Wait, what, Chaz? Okay. What's my favorite non-crime game? Maybe Skyrim, but you could argue that's a crime game too. That's, Yeah, well, the thing is though is Santos in Saboteur is a perfect representation of a, you know, one of the most scummiest criminals that you can have. So during World War II, there was people just like Santos. In the Saboteur, he's a character, and Santos is a real terrible person. He deals with both the Nazis and the French resistance, and he sells to both of them, and he wants the conflict to go on. He wants the war to end, go on as long as possible, because he's making as much. Like, Santos is a really horrible guy, really terrible guy. There's people just like him, and the thing is, Santos is not a person that you can trust at all, because if Santos feels like he's gonna make any kind of money screwing you over, he's gonna instantly do that. So he's just and I was not, when I played the Saboteur the first time, I figured he would be the traitor, and I was right, he was the traitor. Okay. I just recently 100% GTA 5. Is Red Dead Redemption 2 an easy game to 100%? Oh no, it's Red Dead Redemption 2 is probably the hardest. That is probably the hardest game that I know of to platinum right now. That is not an easy one at all. Do you know what the hardest game one of the hardest games that's the platinum is We the Revolution. It's a game that it's a game that I actually really like playing. It's actually one of my favorite games. It's an indie game. But We the Revolution takes place during the French Revolution. And in We the Revolution, you play as a judge on the Revolutionary Tribunal, and you like try royalists, and you basically try royalists and like traitors to the French Republic. And what happens is in the game there's a few trophies that I don't know how to get those trophies. I don't. Because when I tried to look up guides, like, the game is not that popular, so nobody has really made a guide on how to get certain trophies in the game. I don't even know how to get the certain trophies. Like, I the title of it, but I don't even know what you have to do to get those trophies. And I've been trying to platinum that game for years, but I don't even know, because there's no guides on YouTube on how to platinum it. So there's a few trophies that I don't know what you have to do to get them specifically. Are you a digital or a disc gamer? I like playing as discs most of the time. I like discs. However, though, when a new game comes out that I'm doing a playthrough of, I always do digital. And the reason I do digital is because I need to download the game at midnight. Because if I don't do it right away, other YouTubers are going to make videos on it. Because then I'm going to have to go to the store, pick it up. When it's at midnight, I can start making content on it right away. Bro, do you know anyone that fights that fought in World War II? Well, I know that my great-grandfather fought in World War II, but I never knew him. But my great-grandfather was like it was like such an insane story with him, and it's so crazy that he survived all of that. Basically, my great-grandfather was like a soldier in the Polish army during World War II, and what happened is, in 1939, when Germany invaded Poland, he was actually on the eastern side of Poland, and so he was actually one of the soldiers that fought against the Soviets, because the Soviets had a pact with Germany, and they invaded Poland 2 weeks later afterwards, and so he was taken as a prisoner of war by the Soviets, and he was put on a train, and he was on that train for 2 days, and he ended up somewhere in Siberia. It was in Asia at that point. When he got off the train, the Soviet soldiers gave the prisoners like spicy fish,
Here's one corpse on
and
my seat.
and
Here's
basically
your
people would eat that and they wouldn't give them water, and then the prisoners would just die of dehydration in the middle of the freezing cold in Siberia. But my great-grandfather was like a strong man. He was a soldier. He's a pretty, I've seen pictures of him. He was a pretty muscular guy, so that's why he probably survived. But he, after he survived in that gulag in the Soviet Union for nearly 2 years. He had to fight to survive in there. And he survived for nearly 2 years, and then after 2 years, Germany betrayed the Soviet Union and invaded the Soviet Union. And then after that happened, right when Germany invaded the Soviet Union, the Soviets were so desperate that they actually drafted their prison population. And so my great-grandfather got drafted. And what happened is he got sent to Anders' army in Italy. So Anders' army in Italy was an army of Polish soldiers that was, a lot of them were former prisoners that were in Soviet gulags that Stalin released, and they formed an army in Italy, and they were fighting in the Italian campaign to help liberate Italy. And so my great-grandfather fought there, and he fought all the way up until the end of the war. He survived the war, but what happened to him after the war is that the communist authorities in Poland put out an arrest warrant for him again. Even though he had served, years in a gulag, even though he had, fought against the Nazis, they put out an arrest warrant for him again, just because he fought against the Soviets when they invaded Poland in 1939. And so what happened is my great-grandfather actually fled to Britain, and he fled to Britain, and he lived in Britain for a few years, and then he actually came back to Poland, and when he came back to Poland, it was a communist state still, but things had calmed down, because Poland was no longer a Stalinist state. It was still a communist state, but it was no longer a Stalinist state, because when Khrushchev came to power, he was Stalin's successor. He de-Stalinized the Soviet Union, and it de-Stalinized a lot of the Warsaw Pact countries also. And so the government in Poland was still bad, but it wasn't as psycho as it was in the past, and so he was no longer under fear of arrest, so he was able to return. So that was that was the story with my great-grandfather. But it was there was a World War II veteran that I did know. I don't know if he's still alive. I hope he is, because I met him maybe 5 years ago, maybe more than that. It was when I was working in retail. I met this World War II veteran, and it was kind of weird at first, because he stopped me in the aisle and just started telling me World War II stories. I guess he just didn't have anybody to talk to, but I was very interested by his stories, but I never had a customer do that to me where they would just start talking to me about a story in their life. But he just started talking to me about a story in his life, and he had a very interesting story. He talked about how he was a pilot in the Pacific during the war. During World War II, he fought against the Japanese. I don't remember whether he was a fighter pilot or whether he was a bomber. I don't remember that. So that I don't know about. But the thing that he told me, and I'll never forget this part, he told me that when he fought the Japanese in the air, that the thing that scared him the most was actually not dying. He said that what actually scared him more than dying was actually parachuting and getting captured by the Japanese. So he said he was more scared of actually getting captured after he would parachute if his craft got shot down than actually dying. That's how scared he was of getting captured by the Japanese. And he actually said he said that he would rather put a bullet in his head than actually get captured. So that's what he told me. I never forgot that story. But that just shows you just how badly the Japanese treated prisoners of war. Is that the Japanese were very cruel towards prisoners of war. Like, they were very, very horrible. The torture, the horrible things they would do to them. If you were a prisoner under if you were a POW under the Japanese, you had very little chances of surviving. Very, very little chance. You know, you'd be starved out. You'd be tortured. It would be very, very bad. I would recommend that you guys watch my video on Medal of Honor Rising Sun, because on Medal of Honor Rising Sun, there's a documentary that you unlock when you beat the game, because it was a Pacific World War II game, and I actually played the entire documentary on my channel. I watched the whole documentary live, and you just look it up on my channel. It's like World War II veterans something. I'll tell you guys the title in the thing, but I think it was like. I'll look up what the title was. I know it was like World War II veterans something in the title, but I think it's interview with let me see that interview with interviews with real World War II Pacific veterans. That was it. I was just struggling to remember the name. I put it out in February, but basically there's this one guy in the documentary who talks about a few things, and the thing is though is that the Medal of Honor Rising Sun is rated T. It's a rated T game, but one of the interviews that the guy gives is like very brutal. So I don't know if that somehow got around the ESRB rating at that time. But one of the guys in the interview, he's an American, and he was an American soldier in the Philippines, because the Philippines at the time of World War II, before Japan actually invaded it, the Philippines was actually an American protectorate. It was kind of an independent country, but not entirely. It was technically an independent country, but the Philippines still had to do everything. The Philippines still had to do everything the U.S. said. So if the U.S. told the Philippines to do something, the Philippines would have to do it. They still had their own government, but they had to basically do everything the U.S. told them to do. Now, what happened is when the Japanese invaded the Philippines, there's a lot of American soldiers that were there. They got overrun. So a lot of people don't know this, but after Japan actually attacked Pearl Harbor, they did a crazy invasion. They didn't just attack Pearl Harbor, but Japan basically did its own version of Operation Barbarossa, which was Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union. But they did that in Asia. And so the Japanese invaded Southeast Asia. Right after Pearl Harbor, they did a massive invasion of Southeast Asia. They invaded Wake Island. They took Wake Island. They invaded Guam. They invaded, they invaded the Philippines. They invaded, they invaded a bunch of territories. They invaded the American Samoa, I think it was. They invaded, yeah, there was just a lot of different land that the Japanese had taken over. They invaded Indonesia, I know that, and Singapore and Hong Kong and so many places. But about the American soldiers that were in the Philippines, you had like thousands of American troops that got captured in the Philippines. And MacArthur actually had to leave at that time. So MacArthur was the general at that time, and Roosevelt knew that the Philippines was going to be lost. And he told MacArthur to pull out. Now, MacArthur did not want to, we're going to go to a different point here. Maybe I'll go to my moonshine business. MacArthur did not want to pull out. MacArthur wanted to stay, but Roosevelt told him to pull out because he would have gotten captured. And so MacArthur really didn't want to leave, but he was forced to leave, and MacArthur made a promise that he'd come back. Now, years later, in 1944, he did come back, but the American soldiers that got captured in the Philippines, a lot of them didn't make it. They didn't survive. What the Japanese did was they put them on the Bataan Death March, and the Japanese actually had trucks. They had trucks at that time. They could have put them on the trucks and taken them to the prisoners of war camp, but no, instead of taking them on the trucks, they forced them on this horrible march. Just horrible, horrible march. And this is in the Philippines, and so you can imagine the temperatures, how hot it's getting. Just imagine this being forced to march for miles and miles and miles. And the Japanese did not give the American and the Filipino prisoners water. So the American and the Filipino prisoners, they would just collapse along the way. And if you collapsed, if you slowed down at any point, the Japanese would just bayonet you. They would bayonet you or they'd cut your head off. That's thousands of American prisoners of war died in the Bataan Death March. And so in the Medal of Honor documentary, one of the guys is a survivor of the Bataan Death March, and he actually talks about that. And I remember what he said. He said that there was people that were just getting bayoneted left and right. They were just being murdered. And so he literally thought that he'd be next. And so what he did was he just broke away from the line. He just ran and ran away from the Japanese soldiers. And what he did was he jumped in the water and he swam. And he swam for like 10 miles, was it that he said? He swam for like 10 miles to like a series of other islands. And the waters that he actually swam in were shark infested. So he actually didn't even know that the waters were shark infested, but he didn't care. He would have rather taken his chance running away and getting shot than being in the in Japanese captivity. And the thing about the Bataan Death March is that the Japanese, the Bataan Death March actually came out during the war. So in 1944, when the U.S. was actually retaking the Philippines, they actually learned about the Bataan Death March. So a lot of Americans didn't know about that at that time, that it happened. And the American media published stories about Bataan Death March, and the Japanese actually reacted to that propaganda. They reacted to, they made their own propaganda, and they actually said that the American prisoners that died in Bataan, they didn't die. The Japanese were just claiming they died from disease, and they were being treated humanely in like camps and stuff like that. That was all nonsense. The Japanese murdered those prisoners. So that was the Bataan Death March. It was like one of Japan's worst atrocities against prisoners during the war. I think that the Japanese officers that were involved in the Bataan Death March, I think they were hanged after the war. But yeah, for people asking me, you know, what if I knew any World War II veterans, I knew that the guy from the documentary I didn't know, but the guy in the pilot, whether he was a fighter pilot or bomber pilot, I knew him. And so he told me some stories about that stuff. But it was, yeah. And the thing about this is, unfortunately, you know, in today's day and age, the kids these days, a lot of them, I'm not saying every kid, but there's just so many kids I notice they don't care about that. They don't care about the history. They don't care about, you know, the horrible things that, like, you know, veterans went through and, like, you know, what these guys went through. Because, you know, for me, these guys are the real celebrities. These guys are the real heroes, like the World War II veterans. They're my celebrities. You know, I don't understand this worshipping of actors and musicians. They are my actual celebrities. I think that they are the true heroes that we should consider celebrities. They're kids, pro. Sure, I guess. But here's the thing about that. When I was a kid, we were all fascinated by World War II veterans. We were always so interested in World War II veterans. But when I look at kids these days, I don't see that same I don't see that same admiration. I don't see that same fascination. I just don't see it anymore. I'm not saying every kid is like that, obviously, but I'm just saying that I know there's a lot of kids that just they don't care about like what World War II veterans went through, and that's just what's really sad. Everyone wish Mr. Sheep Taco Man Fernando Martinez a feliz cumpleaños. Yes, it's my friend, my moderator's Fernando's birthday, guys. So everyone wish Fernando a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Fernando. I hope that you have a great birthday. Cotton Hill killed 50 men. Wait, who's Cotton Hill? Thank you, Jimmy, for the super chat. I don't know what's worse, the fact that Twitter scumbags try to cancel Mr. Beast, or the fact that he does more than basically every government in this world. I don't know, what are they even trying to cancel Mr. Beast for? Because Mr. Beast is generally a good guy. He helps a lot of people. Sure, he's rich, but he helps a lot of people. So I don't know what they're trying to cancel him for now. Oh, thank you, Hambugler. Thank you for sponsoring my channel. Thanks, man. One person was asking me, who did I think is the most powerful faction in the Star Wars world? The most powerful faction in the Star Wars world? I don't know if it's the most powerful faction, but I would say it's the most underrated powerful faction, which would be the Separatists, the Confederation of Independent Systems. Honestly, I know the Star Wars lore pretty well, and I would consider the Separatists in the Star Wars world to be the good guys. I know some people might heavily disagree with me on that, but I think that the Separatists in the Star Wars world are the good guys. And when I say the Separatists, I'm not talking about people like Count Dooku, and I'm not talking about people like General Grievous. I'm not talking about people like that. Like, those are bad guys. I'm talking about like the average separatist and like what they believed in. I would say that they were probably the good guys in the Clone Wars, not the Republic, because the Republic was very corrupt. Not saying the separatists weren't corrupt, but the separatists had a reason for why they wanted to secede from the Republic. There's like each planet had different reasons, but the Republic, a lot of those planets that the separatists were allied, that were separatist planets, were actually treated like garbage by the Republic. So they were treated really badly. But yet, a lot of times the separatists in the Star Wars world are portrayed as like the villains. But I actually don't consider the separatists villains. The Empire are definitely villains, but the separatists I don't necessarily consider them villains. Let's get over this homestead here. Cotton was Hank's father from King of the Hill. Oh, okay, Jimmy. You know something? King of the Hill is being remade again. It is. And you know something? I gotta rewatch King of the Hill. I gotta watch it. Because the thing about it is, King of the Hill is a TV show that gets better as you get older. Because I'll tell you something. When I was a kid, I used to watch Adult Swim a lot when I was a kid. Like, when I was, like, even, like, 11, 12, 13 years old, I watched Adult Swim all night long. I did. Sometimes even on school nights, I'd watch it. And the thing that you know, my favorite shows on Adult Swim were Family Guy. That was probably my favorite one. Well, actually, no, Futurama. Futurama was my favorite one. It was Futurama. Then it was Family Guy. Then I liked Robot Chicken. I liked that one. Robot Chicken sometimes creeped me out a bit because some of the episodes were like a really, you know, too much for me. But I still like Robot Chicken. But like when it came to King of the Hill, I occasionally watched King of the Hill, but I didn't like it when I was a kid. I actually thought that King of the Hill was boring. But then when I got older, I actually appreciated King of the Hill much more. And I thought that King of the Hill was actually a really good TV show. It was because the show dealt with a lot of things that adults would understand. And so that's why I didn't like it when I was a kid. I liked Family Guy when I was a kid because of all the ridiculous things that happened. That's why I like Family Guy. But I didn't like King of the Hill because King of the Hill was a kind of like a comedy show, but it was a more mature adult, you know, show. It wasn't like ridiculous like Family Guy for all the nonsense that happened, but it also had some important life lessons. And so that's, when I got older and I started watching King of the Hill again, I actually really did enjoy it, and I did appreciate it. But I gotta rewatch the series one day. One day, I gotta start in Season 1, Episode 1, and I gotta rewatch the whole series again. I gotta do that one day. I didn't see every episode of King of the Hill. I saw a lot of the episodes, but I didn't see every episode, which I gotta watch them again. But yeah. I think my favorite episode of King of the Hill was the one with Bobby when he went to the women's self-defense course. I think that's like everybody's favorite episode too. I think that one was the best episode of King of the Hill. I also liked that episode with the when Bobby was like working at the racetrack, and there was like that crazy guy that was making him sell hot dogs and like told him to cross the lane when the cars were going through. I liked that one too. There was a few more that I liked. I like the one where like Dale thought that his son was like an alien. That one was good too. So there was a bunch of them that were really good on that show. That's my purse. I don't know you. Yeah. That was the best joke in King of the Hill. That whole episode was just great. That was No, I'd never been to Canada. What do you think happened to Valerie in The Sopranos? Oh, he went back to Russia. Basically, the David Chase confirmed a few years ago what happened, and he said that Valerie survived that. He survived being like killed by nearly killed by Polly and Christopher. And what happened was the Russian mob boss found out about it. The Russian mob guy, he found out about it, and what he did was he just sent Valerie back to Russia. So he sent him back to Russia because he didn't want him to cut. Because the reason he didn't have him killed was because he was a friend of his. But he sent him back to Russia just so he wouldn't cause problems with the Sopranos. Because he still wanted to do business with the Sopranos. So that was that's basically what happened to Valerie. Is he just got sent back to Russia. The mob boss ordered him to go back to Russia. That was the whole story with him. So when he vanished in the series, a lot of people don't know that. But just look it up. The director just confirmed it. What happened off screen a few years ago. What's your favorite marketing tagline for games? I don't really think anything will beat Spider-Man 2 and be greater together for PS5 that goes hard. Well, thank you, Blinded Eagle. My favorite marketing tagline for a game? I don't know, I don't know. I remember those old commercials. Was it Play Together or something like that? I think there was a really old PlayStation commercial. I remember. It was like a really old one. Was it a PS3 or PS4? I don't remember. It was like years ago, but it was one of my favorite commercials, like a PlayStation 1. And it was that it was like a castle, and like the main character was like a World War II veteran. I think, and it was like every single character was from like a different game. I think the World War II guy, I think he was from Medal of Honor. I think that's what he was from. But it was like he goes into like a castle and you see all the different, like, you know, PlayStation characters and stuff like that. I'm sure somebody knows the commercial that I'm talking about, but that was a really good one. I liked that one. I thought that was really I thought that commercial was like probably PlayStation's best commercial ever. Hi, Pro. It's been a while since I last sent a super chat. This is for you, bro. Thank you, Jonathan. Well, thanks, man. I do appreciate it. Thank you, Jonathan. I still want to play Red Dead Dark the Demon because I like it. I know there's new Futurama. Do you know what I'm gonna do? I'm actually gonna buy the whole series on DVD. So the entire Futurama series, I'm gonna buy the whole series on DVD, and I'm gonna watch it. Hopefully I can finish it before the new season starts. But Futurama was like my favorite show when I was a kid. I love Futurama so much. Like and I'm so happy they brought it back. King of the Hills creator also did Beavis and Butthead, goated show in general. Also, another favorite about adulthood series of mine, that was cool. Oh, I've heard of that show, the Beavis and Butthead one, but I've never actually watched it. I've never seen that one. Does anybody have a trader business or a moonshine to sell, by the way? Does anyone have anything to sell? I'm pretty sure somebody does. Let me disband the posse, and we will resume here. So somebody just send me an invite to your posse if you need help selling. If not, I'll just reform my posse again. Thank you, Mr. Waifu. Please make a lore video on sheep tacos for my birthday. Thank you, Fernando. You forgot to unadd me, bro. Wait, did you want me to remove one of your accounts from my friends list, GD? I'm a bit confused. I'm sorry, GD. Can you explain? I'm sorry. I just have so many people on my friends list that I'm just a bit confused right now. Do you think you'll ever do a Red Dead Redemption 1 playthrough? Yes. I would definitely consider it. Thank you, Hambugler. I remember my old friend got accused of wanting to nuke his old middle school and he got suspended, but he said nothing. We were like 14 at the time. Oh. Well, that's, I mean, I don't know the context of what your friend was saying exactly, but, it's just kids just saying dumb things, but sometimes they, sometimes they will, oh. Well, I got thrown off. Yeah, when you're young and you're a kid, you say really dumb things that sometimes when you get older, you're like, yeah, I can't believe it said that. Valerie is played by the same actor as Bulgarin. Yes, he is. Oh, let's see here. Wait, what, Devin? Oh, let me join his posse here. Okay, let's join his posse. I missed your super chat. I'm sorry, Mario. Let me check. Where's your super chat here, Mario? Oh, in fact, the kids today are likely to call the veterans fascists for fighting against these brutal military powers. Yeah, it's just, like I said, it breaks my heart that you have so many kids today that just don't respect World War II veterans, and, they just treat World War II veterans so badly. Oh, there was a another super chat from Fernando. I'm sorry if I miss any chats, guys. There's a lot of chats that are Once you finish the Siphon Filter franchise, will you consider doing a playthrough of Days Gone? Also, Bully Scholarship is a game too. Yeah, I want to play Siphon Filter 2 again. I want to do that because Siphon Filter 1 was a lot of fun, and I actually did really enjoy it. So I'm definitely down to do Siphon Filter 2. My birthday was 3 days ago. Oh, happy birthday, JBK. My favorite Rockstar game, the Grand Theft Auto series. I've never actually eaten at Olive Garden. I love those weather effects in Red Dead, right? And look at how the rain just bounces off the roof like that. You see that? Like, yeah, that's really cool. You see how it just falls off the roof like that? That's attention to detail. I never watched Seinfeld when I was a kid. I know it's a 1990s show, but I never watched it. What's the most powerful faction in the Fallout universe, in your opinion? I would say the Enclave. The Enclave, yeah. I would say the Enclave is the most powerful faction. And the Enclave has, like, an orbital cannon, when you think about it. Like, they can just blow anything up from space that they want. But there's one thing I don't understand. There's kind of something... Have they ever explained why did the Enclave never blow up the Brotherhood of Steel's base in the Citadel? Why did they never do that? Because in Fallout 3, when you destroy, like, their orbital cannon station, you can actually fire the orbital cannon at the Citadel and blow it up and kill all the Brotherhood of Steel. So I don't know why the Enclave never did that. Yeah. Just wait here, to stop, and just wait, Is he investigating us? What's going? Whoa, what the? Okay, go, let's go. Why was the truth telling CJ to follow the vans? You want to know something, King? I was actually thinking about making a lore video about that, like explaining what the vans were. But I could probably make an educated guess on that, but I'd have to rewatch the cutscenes and really think about what those vans could possibly be. I don't think those vans are ever fully explained what they are when he makes CJ follow them, but I could probably make a lore video on that. You know, my best theories on what that is. Hey Pro, is having a bunker in the US as common as it shows in Days Gone? I'm not from the US. Nobody has bunkers in the cities. But there are people that build underground shelters. That does happen. It's not very common, but it does happen. The thing about this is, I'll tell you guys a crazy story about this. So, when I moved to the Midwest from New York, right? I moved to the Midwest from New York, like 3 years ago. And what happened is, the area that I live in, it's a town, but the area outside of it is very rural. Like, very, very small towns. Like, pretty much like, it's kind of like Courage the Cowardly Dog when you think about it. It's like that. It's like just fields of just, you know, just very empty flatlands. And so these are the kind of places where you might see stuff like that. And so when I moved out here, I was actually considering at first buying like a small house, like a small two-bedroom house. I was considering that, but then I thought to myself, you know what, I was just gonna rent an apartment, because I don't really need a house. But when I was looking at houses, I actually saw this one house that had like a doomsday bunker shelter inside of it. It was like in the basement, and there was like a big steel door, and like inside of the thing, there was like this guy had like stockpiled like tons of food, and like it was like a big thing. Like it went down a little bit. I'm pretty sure it was legal because he was advertising it online. So it was that, but I actually considered going to the house and looking at it, but I never went. But that was like, I did see one house like that. There is this one house in Las Vegas. I think it's still for sale. But go on Google and just look up Las Vegas Doomsday Bunker House. There's this one house where it looks like a regular house. Like, it just looks like a small, rundown house above. Like, the house on top, above ground, doesn't look that great. It's kind of like a rundown house. But it actually has an elevator. And the elevator takes you hundreds of feet below ground, and there's like a whole like bunker down there, and it's like a swimming pool is down there. There's like bedrooms and everything like that, and the house is like millions of dollars. So even though the house above ground looks like garbage, it's like a whole bunker, like, you know, civilization down below. It's like kitchens and like bedrooms and just stuff, swimming pool. And I was like, wow, it was like that. But the thing about this is that. Here's the thing about this. My personal opinion on the whole Doomsday, you know, bunker stuff. When people build stuff like that, my personal opinion on it, I think it's cool. You know, if somebody builds like a Doomsday bunker in the bottom of their house, I think it's cool. I think most people would agree with that. But in reality, though, if you expect that to protect you in like a nuclear war, you're very sadly mistaken, because you're going to be dead. Because the thing about that is just think about it this way. Let's say that you build like a nuclear, you know, doomsday bunker, right? Let's just say that Las Vegas bunker, right? That was in that house. You know, it has vents and everything like that. But here's the thing. Let's just say, you know, theoretically, you know, I don't like getting into this, but there's a horrible nuclear war. If something like that happened, you know, you would not survive. Even if you were in a bunker like that, you would probably survive the blast. But depending on the warhead that dropped, there'd be nuclear radiation, toxic fumes all over. And so your ventilation is going to be coming from the outside. So you'd still be dead. And eventually you're going to run out of canned food. Eventually. You know, the canned food is not going to last you forever. You know, maybe a few months, maybe a year or two at most. But it's not going to last you forever. And eventually you're going to have to go topside, and you're going to go into that. And I highly doubt that those doomsday preppers have like a radiation suit that's enough to be able to sustain that. To get through that, because you know what doomsday preppers get the most wrong is they think that a simple gas mask is going to protect you from radiation. They think that. I don't know why so many people think that, but people think that like a simple gas mask will protect you from radiation, but it's not going to, because that stuff will touch your skin and melt your skin. And so that would be, you would have to have a full, complete suit, and it would not have to be some cheap crap. It would have to be like the best of the best to be able to like even like the best suits. Even sometimes radiation still gets inside it. That's how toxic radiation is. So that's the thing is that's my personal opinion on the whole doomsday bunker things. Yes, there are a lot of houses that have them. You don't see houses in like New York that have them, never. But in the Midwest is fairly common. There are some houses like that have them, but they're more for cool. They're more for just, like I said, don't expect them to protect you from a nuclear blast, because they won't. They're just something that. Cool, like you get to show your friends and your family like, oh, I have this cool like doomsday shelter thing here. That's pretty much what it's for. It's not going to protect you from like a nuclear war, but like some of these people, they think that it will protect them from a nuclear war. It's not going to. It's not that. You know, the best thing, you know what honestly would protect you more from nuclear war than a doomsday shelter? It'd be living as far away from cities. That would protect you. If you want to survive a nuclear blast, it'd be living as far in the most remote places ever. That would probably protect you way more than having a doomsday a bunker. Well, it depends. If you have the doomsday bunker in a very remote area, I guess that would help. But if you have it like in a somewhat populated area, if God forbid a war happened, you'd still be screwed. So that's let me see here. I'm in a posse again, guys. If you want to join back here. Have you been to all 50 states? No. What's the best platform to play GTA 4 on? PC. PC, Lucius, PC. But PS3 and Xbox 360 has online. The PC version doesn't anymore. Favorite Red Dead Redemption 2 chapter? I say 2 or 5 because of the Guarma's action. Yeah, I would say I like chapter 5 a lot because of the Guarma War. Yeah, I like that. Oh, you gotta sell. Okay, hold on a second. Hold on, let me leave. Okay, I was probably full on posse. Invite me to the posse. Invite me. I got to go now. I always watch you no matter. Thank you, Mr. Waifu. Thanks, man. I want you to unadd my old account so you can add my new one. Oh, okay. What's your, can you put in the chat, GDI Lives? Can you put in the chat, what is your old account and what is your new account? You don't have to super chat. Again, I do appreciate it. I'll look for your comment. I'm sorry if I didn't remove your old account if you wanted me to. I just have so many people on my friends list, and it gets confusing at times, so sorry. Pro, why didn't Salvatore recognize CJ when he worked for his son Joey? Because Salvatore's the boss. He probably CJ was just an associate that worked for Salvatore. He probably would have never seen Salvatore. So CJ knew who Salvatore was, but Salvatore didn't know who he was. Okay. Do you think a new Saboteur game should take place during the Soviet occupation of East Germany? Well, I would like to see a new Saboteur game. EA technically still has the rights to it, but if they do a new Saboteur game, why don't they do it in the Pacific? Why don't they do that? Why don't they do it in like an occupied city in the Pacific? Like, why don't they do it in occupied Shanghai, or occupied Hong Kong, or occupied Singapore? Or they could do like, they could do several major cities that the Japanese occupied. They could do something like that, and like the Japanese would be the next enemies in that one. So, because for people that don't know, the Saboteur was a resistance game. It was a game where you play as a resistance fighter in Nazi-occupied France. It was an open-world game. And so if they make a second one, they should do one in the Pacific. It's like an occupied city under the Japanese rule. I would like to see something like that, too.
A very good morning to you.
Can you invite me to your posse? What's going on here? The FBI truck in San Andreas? I don't know. I don't think so. Let me see. GD Lives. Did he post this comment again here? Let me see here. Actual mercenary, the new one is Wilson. Okay, I will do that after the stream, GD Lives. Have you seen those old civil defense films from the 50s and 60s? There's a lot of them on YouTube. Very interesting viewing, I might say. I don't... Are you talking about, like, the one with the, like, the police training from the 60s with, like, the revolver and stuff like that, the speed loader? I seen, like, a video like that. I think it was Indiana Police or something, like, it was recommended to me, like, one time. But, yeah, they used to have those speed loaders for the revolvers, because police used to carry revolvers in America. Yeah, they didn't, you know, even, like, American police carried revolvers until, like, I think the 90s, some police departments. So that was, yeah. If you're low on health or armor, go into an ambulance or an FBI vehicle. They'll regen accordingly. Credit goes to a new video from TGG a few days ago. Yeah, well, I didn't know about the armor in the FBI vehicle. I didn't know about that, but I knew about the health. I knew that if you go in the ambulance to restore health, but that was something that's been in the GTA games for a very long time. It's been, you know, the older GTA games. If you go into an ambulance, I'm pretty sure you would regain some of the health on it. Yeah, SOCOM is gonna be a very fun series when we do it. Have you still managed to watch the movie Rules of Engagement yet? And would it be interesting for a Bulge DLC for Sniper Elite 5? Also sub-tier variety. Thank you, JD. I would like to see the Battle of the Bulge. Definitely, they could definitely do that. Because like the last mission took place in August of 1944, and so you know we are approaching fall and winter in the Sniper Elite series, and so the Battle of the Bulge would be a perfect Sniper Elite mission. That'd be a perfect one. You know, like a winter mission. Carl's crawling around in like, you know, the winters of Belgium, like in the forest. I think that would be perfect. Well, I think that he was always a horrible person. You know, his entire life, JBK. Cold War civil defense films. Oh, I don't know. That I don't know about. The most evil thing Stallone did? Stallone? What? You mean Stalin? What are we doing right now? Are we selling something? Let's see here. Okay, let me get up there here. Well, remember, Tenpenny took all his money. What do you think about the rumor Red Dead Redemption Remastered? I actually put out a video on that yesterday, Pilot Man. That was, yes, I think that it's a possibility. I think, you know, the South Korean reviews definitely do raise that possibility that, yes, it could happen. Why do you think there was never a San Andreas stories? Because the limitations of the PSP, they'd have to have a very large map for that. Oh. Would it also be interesting to see the Valkyrie Jaegers? 502 Jaeger Battalion appear in the DLC. They can give the FG-42 and the white fatigues. Were there even paratroopers in the Battle of the Bulge? I don't even know if there was German paratroopers in that conflict. But yeah, I mean, do you know the one thing that I was disappointed about with the paratroopers in Sniper Elite 4 and 5? That you never see the paratroopers actually drop in. The paratroopers are always fighting on the ground, but it'd be interesting if they were like an enemy that could actually just appear out of nowhere and just drop in. Most evil thing that Stalin did. Probably the Gulag network that he built. You know, millions of people that perished in those gulags. So yeah, it'd probably be the Gulag network that he built. You know, something I'll tell you about history, with Stalin is, if you want to know how evil of a guy Stalin was, Stalin gave specific orders to his soldiers. He told the soldiers that were guarding him outside his office, his bodyguards, he told them, do never disturb me under any circumstances, never come into my office, never disturb me. One day, Stalin was screaming, help, help, I need help. The soldiers run into the office to see if Stalin's okay. You know what Stalin says? Stalin says, I gave you specific orders to never come in here. That was a test, and you disobeyed my orders. And he had both of them shot. That's the type of guy that Stalin was. And so that was, Stalin, the ironic thing about Stalin is Stalin had a stroke. And he collapsed years later, and in that same office. And this time, everybody was scared to check up on him because of that, and he died. And so that was karma, pretty much, that. Please unban Alex T. I've been a sub since 2020. I can look into your profile, Alex T, but why did you get banned? What was the reason? I don't know what's going on here, and you can't insult my moderator like that too, Alex. You can't talk to my moderator like that. Chaz is a good guy. I just literally read the whole name just now. That was you know, just saying bad things about a moderator like that is not a good way to get unbanned. Yeah, I feel bad now because I read his message but I didn't read his name, and then I read his name afterwards. Yeah, that is the Gulag Network was a bunch of camps that Stalin built, hundreds of them, where he used forced labor. So many people died. Alex, if you want, any chance of getting unbanned, I would apologize to Chasaruni for that, and it's up to him. But you don't say things about people like that if you want to get unbanned. No, it's up to Chasaruni, that's what I say. It's up to him. It's, because he insulted Chasaruni. So that's, that is actually, that comment right there. There's a Stalin in the chat, and he actually, no, I know that, Chasaruni. It's up, that's why I'm saying it's up to you. Because he's the one who insulted you. So I'm sorry it happened to you. The Stalin that was in chat, he wrote, "The Tsar had gulags before me." What I will say about this is that comment is actually 100% true on that. People actually don't know about this, but the Soviets were not the ones who built the gulags. People actually don't know that. It was actually the Tsar, the Russian Empire, the Imperials. The Russian Imperials were actually the ones who built the gulags before the, they were the ones who built the gulags before the Soviets did. And, what happened is, when the Bolsheviks came to power, in Russia, they expanded the Gulag network. They built way more than the Tsar, but they weren't the ones who built the Tsar. The Gulag was the word that the Soviets used for the camp. But the Tsar had his own gulags. I just don't remember what they were called. They had a, they had a specific other name for it. The thing about that is that the gulags that the Tsar had, the Russian Imperials, a lot of times people would be sent there for things like a lot of Polish people were sent to those gulags that the Tsar built. And the Polish people that were sent there, why were they sent there? They were sent there for speaking Polish. Yeah, that's right. Because when the Russian occupied part of Poland, they tried to Russify Poland. They tried to force Poland to be Russian. And so it was that you were not allowed to speak Polish on your own soil. And if you actually spoke Polish, you could actually be deported to an imperial gulag. That pretty much could happen. Oh, thank you, Pug. Thank you for sponsoring my channel, man. To be honest, have you ever been tempted to grief someone in GTA? Well, I'll answer that question. I did destroy cargo only once, ever, intentionally. I destroyed cargo before by accident, during missions and stuff like that, but I only destroyed it once on purpose, only one time. And basically, I only destroyed 3 crates. But the reason that I did that was because it was right after the CEO update came out, so it was in 2016. And right after the CEO update came out, my friend's cargo got blown up by some guy in a laser jet. And so I got annoyed, and what I did was, like 30 minutes later, that same guy was sourcing crates to his warehouse. He was in a van. I went and blew him up, and I destroyed his crates. The only reason I did that was because he blew up my friend's crates in the first place. So I was pissed. But what I will say is I kind of regretted it afterwards, because two wrongs don't necessarily make a right. But what I will say is this is one of the things that people tried to cancel me for, like months beforehand, because like a few months ago somebody like asked me in a super chat. They asked me have I ever like destroyed cargo, and I basically told this story, and I said that. And after I said that, I had a bunch of idiots that would just keep coming onto my random YouTube videos. They would come into my random YouTube videos and they would spam comments. They would say, "Oh, Professional admitted to griefing. He's a hypocrite. He supports cargo griefing," and stuff like that, and just over and over and over again. And it was like, it went on for weeks and weeks. I had like comments popping up, and eventually it died down and it stopped. But it was like, it was really stupid and it was really annoying. And the thing about that is those people are complete idiots. Because, like I said, the only reason I destroyed the guy's cargo was because he destroyed my friend's cargo. That was like the only reason I did it, and I regretted it afterwards. And I never destroyed anybody's cargo for literally 7 years. 7 years I haven't destroyed anybody's cargo. And so that was the only time I ever did it, because this guy already blew up my friend's cargo beforehand, so I did it in revenge. That's the whole reason I did it. But I had people that were just, constantly, calling me a griefer and a hypocrite for it because I admitted to destroying cargo like one time. And the thing is, that doesn't make me a hypocrite. It would make me a hypocrite if I still kept blowing up people's cargo, but I told people instead, don't destroy it. Then I'd be a hypocrite. But I destroyed a griefer's cargo 7 years ago, and I regretted it afterwards. That doesn't make me a hypocrite. So that's, okay, let me see here. Form me. Am I in a posse right now? I'll form my own posse. Okay. Yeah, I made a video on the Red Dead Redemption 1 remake. Okay. Whole thing in first person here. Oh, I missed that shot? Okay. Got him now. Oh, these guys are the Lemoyne Raiders. I didn't even realize I was fighting the Lemoyne Raiders. And wow, they're pretty far up. They're pretty far over here. They're usually not around the Blackwater area. Oh, Skinner brother. It says Skinner, but that guy was wearing a what? Confederate uniform. Okay. No, it's Skinner's. Well, I guess he just probably took the uniform off of someone, but. Prey Pro, are you considering doing the Fallout content in the future? Fascinating universe. I'd love to see your views on the world and the lore. I actually know Fallout lore pretty well, and I would actually I would be willing to do it. I would be willing to do a lore on it. Thank you, Revan. Fallout 3 is my favorite one. Fallout 3 I like, because I like Fallout 3 more than New Vegas, even though New Vegas is more choice, because I just like the Capital Wasteland more. But what I was telling, what I was trying to tell that story earlier is, about the Russian Imperial gulags. What happened was the Russian Empire actually kidnapped thousands of Polish kids and would just send them to like gulags in Siberia. And these Polish kids that were in gulags in Siberia, it's like over 100 years ago. These kids were oftentimes the kids of like Polish resistance fighters, like Polish Polish independence fighters. And so the Russian state would just take them away. And what they would do is they would basically try to brainwash these kids and tell them you're Russian, not Polish, and speak Russian, don't speak Polish. And what happened is these kids, the ironic thing about it is that the Japanese were actually the ones who saved them. Because what happened was in 1920, Japan actually invaded the Soviet Union. People don't know about that. It was a few countries that invaded the Soviet Union from the east, the far east, but it was an attempt to stop the Bolsheviks from taking power in Russia, but it failed. And Japan actually tried to conquer parts of Siberia, but they realized they couldn't hold it, and so they pulled out. And the Japanese army actually got to these camps in like the far east, in which they found these Polish kids. And these Polish kids were they had a lot of malnutrition, they were hungry, they were very skinny, they were just in very bad shape. And the Japanese soldiers actually saved those kids, which this is the kind of weird because the Japanese have just done such horrible things in their conquests, but this was like one of the few things that the Japanese army did something really good and really nice, and they actually saved all these Polish kids. And they took these Polish kids back to Japan, and they raised them in, like, orphanages there. The kids had much better lives there than they did in, in Siberia. And then when Poland became an independent state, like 1 or 2 years later, the Japan actually released all those Polish kids back to Poland. And so Japan and Imperial Japan and the Second Polish Republic actually had a bit of a friendly relationship with each other because of that main event. And the Japanese actually said that Poland was the samurai nation of Europe. That's what Japan actually said about Poland. But that was the thing, is that it's a bit of a weird history that people don't know about. But I got into an argument with this Russian guy on like a YouTube comment section, like maybe like 1 or 2 years ago, about this very issue. About like those camps, like when they were like keeping the Polish kids in, and how the Japanese liberated them. And this Russian guy was like telling me, he's like oh, these camps were just like, they were very humane, and like the kids chose to be there, they wanted to go to Siberia, they wanted to be. It's like, what kid chooses to leave Poland to go to like the freezing tundras of Siberia? It's like, it was nonsense. It was like the Russian state was clearly kidnapping those Polish kids. It was like that Russian guy that argued with was just spewing nothing but propaganda. It was just nonsense. It was just stupid. But it was absolute nonsense that he was telling me. But yeah, that was Poland and Japan's had a very weird relationship because of that. It was people don't know a bit about that. And the weirdest thing I'll tell you guys about this is that when in 1945, after Germany was actually defeated, the Polish government in exile declared war on Japan. And the thing about this is Japan actually refused their declaration of war. So they refused the declaration of war that Poland made on them. And Japan had actually claimed that they would not fight Poland, and that Poland was forced to make that declaration of war. And that there was no combat between Poland and Japan ever. It was just a declaration of war for the Polish government in exile. But it was Japan has said that they refused to accept the declaration of war. But that was
A good sail. Excellent.
Okay, we see here.
D'accord. Oh, as you wish. But it can be made to be cheaper, huh? Good, yes. Now we allow it to mature, huh?
So Siberia was its separate country previously? No, it was well, Siberia technically was never really a country. There were a bunch of tribes that were together, but they had their own identity and their own culture and language and religions, and the Russians conquered them. That's what it was. Like, there's a lot of people in Siberia to this day that actually speak their own languages. Like, they refuse to speak Russian, and if you ask them, they say, "I'm not Russian, I'm Siberian." There's that one game. There's a game that I started playing recently. It's a sniper game, which I would like, when I beat the game, I'll do a playthrough of it on the channel one day. But if you guys like my Sniper Elite series, you'll definitely like this one. It's called Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts. And in Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts, it takes place in the future where, like, Siberia secedes from Russia and becomes its own independent country, and then, like, a dictator rises to power there, and you basically play as an assassin. You're like a hitman sniper. So, basically, in that, something like that, the story in Ghost Warrior Contracts, something like that could actually happen. It's very possible, because there is actually an independence movement in Siberia. There are parts of Siberia that actually do want to secede from Russia, and it's because those parts of Siberia are very neglected, and they're treated like crap by Russia. Because what is the poorest region in Russia? Where is the most poverty in Russia? The most poorest region in Russia is Siberia. That's where the most amount of poor people live. What is the richest part of Russia? The western part of Russia is the richest part of Russia. And where does Russia get most of its money from, the funding? It gets it from the minerals in Siberia. The minerals in Siberia, the logs in Siberia, they get their wood from Siberia, they get their minerals from Siberia, they get their steel from Siberia, their iron from Siberia, they get their oil from Siberia. So Western Russia gets the vast majority of its resources from Siberia, but yet Siberia is so poor. But then when you look at Western Russia, I mean, I wouldn't say that Western Russia is rich, but it's much better off than Siberia. You have people in Siberia that don't even have bathrooms in their houses. You know, they have an outhouse. They have like they have like a bathing house where they all go to. And so why is it that the part of Russia that is the most rich in resources is also the poorest part of Russia? So when you have a situation like that, there's a reason that Siberia might break away from Russia one day and become its own independent country when, like, their resources are just being, exploited like that by Western Russia. There's a reason that might happen. So that story in, like, Ghost Warrior Contracts, where, like, Siberia secedes from Russia and becomes its own country, something like that could actually technically happen one day. That's a possibility. How do you know this, Pro? Well, I mean, I read a lot, and, I read a lot. I guess I watch documentaries, and I'm telling you that the poorest part of Russia is Siberia. It is. It's where the most amount of poverty you have in Siberia. Is the Bombushka worth buying? Yeah. I mean, it's a fun aircraft to mess around with, but it's not really going to do anything for you. It's not going to help you in a mission or anything specifically in that. The Empire, the rising sun of Japan in World War II, is the most brutal because they were literally treated like, savages in general just by the higher ups. Thank you, JD. Well, Japan, here's the thing, when Japan actually, was doing its conquering, Japan had their own version of the British East India Company. They had their own version of that. It was called the Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere. And that was Japan's empire, was because Japan never called itself an empire. In the West, we called it an empire, which it is an empire, it is. But Japan never really called itself an empire. It would actually use the term Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. Now, the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere, Japan, it's actually very similar to the Russian Empire, very similar. Because the Russian Empire, when they would conquer places like Poland, what the Russian Empire would basically do is they would basically say Slavic Brotherhood. They would say, we're all Slavic, we're all equal, the Tsar, the Russian king protects us, and he protects all Slavic people. That's what the Russian propaganda would basically say. But it was a load of nonsense, because it was never about Slavic Brotherhood. It was instead about Russian domination. Because if it was about Slavic Brotherhood, all Slavic people would have been equal under the Russian Empire, but they weren't. It was the Russians who would dominate everything. And the Russians would basically try to Russify those areas. They would basically go into an area like Poland, and they would tell Poles, you can only speak Russian. You can't speak Polish in your own country. You speak Polish, you're gonna get fined, arrested, or possibly sent to Siberia. And they told Poles you can't even be Catholic. They would close down Polish, Catholic churches. Poland was largely a Catholic country. And this is kind of similar to the Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere that Japan did, because when Japan was conquering places like China and those places, and like Indonesia, what Japan would basically do is Japan would basically say, we're all Asians, we're all equal, we're here, we're liberating you from the Western powers, we're liberating you from the Western imperialists, when Japan was their own imperialist. They were. They were just exploiting those territories, and Japan never believed in Asian equality. They claimed they believed in Asian equality, but they never believed in Asian equality. It was just like the Russian Empire. It was Japanese domination. It was if you were not Japanese, you were not treated equally to them. You were treated like garbage. Let me go to, I gotta restart my game here. I had to restart my game because it got glitched out here, but the Japanese basically saw anybody that, yeah, let me, guys, I'm just going to go into game chat again because I just had to restart my game because it froze on the poker screen. What I was basically saying here is that the Japanese basically saw anybody that they conquered as, inferior to them. They saw the Chinese as inferior to them. They saw the Indonesians as inferior to them. They saw the Vietnamese as inferior to them. They saw the Koreans as inferior to them. So it was every single people that they conquered. They never liberated those people. They just treated those people like garbage. And that's why, to this day, almost every single country to this day has a very negative view of the Japanese Empire. Almost every country, like China, Taiwan, South Korea, North Korea as well, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Indonesia. Almost all those places have a negative view of the Japanese Empire. None of them, and all those countries are so different from each other. Some of those countries are dictatorships, some of them aren't. But the one thing they have in common is that they all just don't like the Japanese Empire because the Japanese occupation was that brutal that everyone can pretty much agree that it was just horrible. Let me look at the comments here. Yeah, empire is pretty much oppression. Like, anytime I hear the word empire, empire is a bad word. It's not a good thing. Empire is not a good thing. It never is. The whole purpose of an empire is to have colonies and basically benefit the mother country. That's pretty much the purpose of an empire. It's a way to benefit the mother country and exploit countries. That's what an empire does. Yeah, I could maybe one day, Mr. Blue Wolf. But the reason that a lot of those countries still have problems with Japan to this day is because Japan does not fully admit to its atrocities that they committed during World War II. So a lot of people actually don't know about that. That there's a lot of things that Japan did during World War II where they don't admit to it fully today, and that rightfully upsets a lot of countries. The only country in Asia that actually has a more positive view of the Empire of Japan was Thailand. Because Thailand was kind of more of like an ally of Japan instead of a colony, where every single other place was something they took over. Thailand was kind of like their ally, but Thailand was also kind of forced to be their ally. So Thailand was never fully conquered by the Japanese. It was just they had their own government. But Thailand didn't suffer the oppression, the mass oppression that a lot of other countries, for example, had. I mean, they did suffer some Japanese oppression, but it wasn't to the extent that that like Japan did to China or Korea, for example. Yeah, I do talk a lot. I'm sorry about. I'm not trying to bore anybody. I'm sorry. I do talk a lot too much sometimes. Which country is the darkest past? The thing about that is so many countries have done such horrible things, it would be very hard to admit, what country has the darkest past. It would just, there's just so many countries that have done such horrible things. Do you know something? I'll tell you guys something about that. Do you know what's one country that actually has a very evil past that a lot of people don't know about? Because it's like a country you don't expect it to have an evil past. But one country that has a very evil past is Belgium. Like small Belgium. When people think of Belgium, they think like, what could small Belgium have done that was so evil in the past? But Belgium has a really messed up history. Belgium, what they've done is they had King Leopold. King Leopold if I was to name the most evil kings in history, not dictators but kings, if I was to name the most evil kings and queens in history, King Leopold will definitely be very high in that list. King Leopold of Belgium invaded the Congo in Africa, and they in the Belgians, when they were in Africa, they had mass slavery, like on massive amounts. Like it was much worse than what the British had done. For example, like in Belgium, like the British had more colonies in Africa, they did, but what the Belgians did to the Congo people was even worse than what the British did. It was worse than what the German Empire did to their colonies in Africa, and it was worse than the French. You know, I'm not defending those empires by any means. They were all really bad. What I'm just saying is the Belgians were especially cruel. Like they were just very, very cruel. And King Leopold, let me see here. What cards do I have here? King Leopold in Belgium, they had so many slaves that they were working these people to death, like around the clock. No water breaks, nothing. These people were just collapsing and dying, and the Belgians murdered somewhere around 1 million to 2 million Congo Africans. It was horrible. And in the, they would even cut their arms off. So they would cut their hands off. If they weren't working properly, you would have like a Belgian, like Congo military officer that would cut off a slave's hand. And so when, like I said, you know, there are some countries to this day that you don't think that they would do something like really bad. But like you look at a country like Belgium today, like a very small, peaceful country, and you would never think that a country like that had so many slaves and would just murder people so badly like that, like a small country like that. But they did. And that was the, that's why I say, like, is pretty much, you look at so many countries around the world and you don't expect them to have such a dark history, but they do. And that's the thing about Belgium is, you know, Belgium is just, it's just, when you read about what King Leopold did, you know, the horrible things they did in the Belgian colonies, it was really, really bad. But that King Leopold, that guy was just a horrible human being. And, you know, and if hell exists, you know, that's perfect place for somebody like that. Like, that was just a, you know, evil man, horrible person.
Thanks for me.
Yeah, I lost that hand there, but... I used the Black Arabian Horse. Who do you think was the worst Soviet dictator after Stalin? Lenin? No, let me look, Mario. Hey, oh, thank you, Runaway3. Pro, I was wondering if you could friend me. The name is the same as my YouTube name. Thank you, Runaway3. Thank you for sponsoring my channel for a year and a half. I will, I'll send you a message after the stream. Thank you, Diego. The worst thing I've seen this week is someone bought a used hazmat suit. It read 130 millisieverts per hour, and he was sleeping in it. Oh, I don't know what that reading is. I'm assuming that's really bad. But no, I would never consider even touching a hazmat suit. Even people paid me.
Somebody get the floor to stop moving.
You should see some of those Cold War civil defense productions. They're very interesting to see. It also gives good insight into the 50s and 60s U.S. I could probably, like, documentaries, like on the, from the 50s and the 60s, I'm sure there's, like, some of those movies that are on YouTube, Oh, well, South Africa had a very dark history as well. You had, you know, the apartheid that was in South Africa was very cruel, and it was very, it was very bad. In South Africa was one of the last fascist countries. South Africa, you could argue, is pretty much a fascist country. So South Africa was one of the last fascist countries. Okay, let's see. Put up $1 here.
So, here we are.
I'm scared of college. Any advice should I go? Well, Jaden, the first year of college is just like an extension of high school, pretty much. You're gonna get used to it. It's not that bad. Most Raider psychopaths in GTA games, 3D or HD. Most Raider psychopath. Claude. Yeah, I'd say Claude. Let's see here. I hope I win this hand. Somebody might fold here. Oh, Britain definitely has a dark past with its empire. But what I was getting at earlier, let's see what cards he has. I won. Yes. What I was getting at earlier is that there are a lot of countries out there that you don't know they had really dark pasts. Like, do you ever hear about Belgium's dark, horrible history? You don't really hear about that much. But, you know, I wasn't defending, like, those other empires that were in Europe, or those other empires that were in Africa. I was just saying that what Belgium did in the Congo was even worse than what the, you know, the British did in, like, their African colonies and what the French did. Like, it was, the Belgians were especially cruel. It's like, that's what I was saying as, is that it's like a small little country like Belgium. You'd never expect that a country like that would do such horrible things. You know, Belgium is a beautiful country today. It's a very peaceful country. But, you know, it's like, you know, over 120 years ago, it's a very different story with their colonies. Okay, 2 and 9. Let's see here. Now folding here. What to do if you have an interview for your first job? Just don't be nervous, because if you're nervous, they'll see that. I would say just try to be confident in the interview. I'm doing good, Big Boss Man. How are you? Wait, what's that? Shakeen? What's up, man? Okay, Dakota. I can message you after the stream. Wait, what's that? Nate. Okay, here. Favorite color, orange. What's your question, Nicholas? You still confuse my name. Naif Shakeen, if I'm reading your name correctly. I'm sorry if I read your name wrong. What's up, man? You're my favorite YouTuber. Thank you, Crush. I think I'm gonna win this hand.
Mudtown claimed another. Some fool fell off his horse, drowned in the damn dirt. Don't surprise me. Well,
Well, there's a lot of corruption there, Nicholas. You have, you know, government officials that live in massive palaces. GTA 3, I would say, yeah, is one of the more creepier GTA games. He went in with 2s. Why did you go with a 9 and a 5? Yes. Look at that.
I hope I make it home.
Okay, we're gonna leave here. We made, you know, we made a nice profit there. But I'm sorry, Shakeen. How do I pronounce your name? I'm sorry for pronouncing it wrong. $50 milli servants a year is limit for a new plant worker. A year. And you're saying that that suit had like, what, 200? Okay, Mario.
Here you are. Reckon you've been traveling since last time. Well, I'm sure you travel a lot. You'll find some food on the shelves and counter and the liquor along the back wall. Real essential. Might as well grab some candies on the way out, too.
Say Shaheen, but hard for you. Okay, well, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. I apologize. My favorite SpongeBob episode is the chocolate one. My least favorite one, I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. Maybe the lemonade one. Most dangerous person in GTA, not insane or crazy, just outright dangerous. So somebody who's very dangerous but is not insane or crazy. Claude. Claude isn't insane or crazy, but he's dangerous. Yeah. You're so interesting, Pro. I love the discussion about war, etc. I learned a lot, and would you ever do the Far Cry games? I did Far Cry 6, but I would consider playing Far Cry 2, which Far Cry 2 I really liked. Far Cry 2 was a very dark Far Cry game, and it was very brutal, and the characters were really evil in that one compared to the other games. Well, thank you, DJ Jeremy. Why is Claude a psychopath, and how do you know? Because Claude has no conscience. He doesn't care about anyone.
Come real handy for lots of folks.
Oh man, this game had so much potential, didn't it? There's the detail in this game, even going around in the shop and being able to purchase what you want in the shop, like this.
All sorts of folks stopping here. Chief Dunbar.
50 cents for a peach? This is highway robbery. Like, this is just, you know, even back then, that's an insane amount for a peach. Yeah, this game, just the detail in this game, and it's just such a shame this game was abandoned like this. It was just, yeah. And, like, back then, that's how they would sell candy. They actually didn't have candy in, like, a lot of wrappers back then. Back then, they would have, like, a bin like that, and you would just pour a bunch of the candy into, like, a bowl, and then they would probably just measure it by weight and then charge you. That's how it was with candy. America generally had candy first in a lot of other European countries. A lot of European countries actually didn't have chocolate until later on. When can somebody tell me, when does the monthly event end on Reddit Online? Can somebody tell me that? Because people were saying it got extended for like a week, right? Can somebody in the comments tell me when does the Reddit event end? Red Dead event end? What day does it end? July 20. And The Newswire, was there an updated Newswire post on it? Was there an updated Newswire post on the on it specifically? Or did they just update the old one? Let me see here. Update. The current Red Dead Online bonus has been extended through July 10. So, okay. They updated it. Does that mean we're going to get a new DLC? Probably not. Gonna have to see, though. Because, honestly, I have no hope for them making a DLC for Red Dead Online, guys. I really don't have a hope for it. Even GT Online getting smaller updates.
I ain't one to boast, but my shop keeps this whole town fed.
What was your favorite subject in school? My least favorite. My favorite was history. My least favorite was math. You mean Los Angeles? Maybe one day. Yeah, this game has been missing 2 years of content.
You're welcome back if you change your mind.
Pro, your streams are peaceful. I love them. Thank you. And a lot of people actually hang out on my streams, not even for the Red Dead content. They just like listening to my stories and just me talking about different things on a Friday afternoon, just hanging out. Okay, so I guess we'll be wrapping up the stream here, guys. We'll be going here. Thank you guys for watching. Tomorrow, I will have the next part of Medal of Honor up. So tomorrow, I'll have another part of Medal of Honor up. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope all of you guys have a great weekend. And if you guys enjoyed the stream, please do drop a like if you guys enjoyed the stream. It does help me out. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend, guys.